Well, good morning. I will call our February meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority to order. I don't particularly have any items unless Jason would like to introduce ours maybe before we get started. Item from the chairman. I mean, we must let everybody know.
Okay. I'd like to introduce Iris Newman. She's going to be joining us as our administrative coordinator and will be your primary, as a trustee, your primary contact as far as scheduling meetings and helping us organize trust and committee meetings moving forward. So we're glad to have her.
All right. Thank you. All right. Do we have any citizens to be heard? No? Oh, okay. Then I would have approval of our minutes of our January 5th meeting.
Move approval.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Consent docket, we've got 4 items on there, and I asked Jason if he would just refresh the trust on item B, because I'm sure it's been a long time since maybe the trustees looked at the interlocal agreement, but are there any of the other items that the trustees would like particular mention about? All right, Jason, if you would just kind of refresh us on B.
Sure, I'd be glad to. So just real quickly, the interlocal agreement that's in your packet, the little bit of history there. The original interlocal was entered into between the city and the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority back in 1989. That interlocal has been renewed periodically since then. If you look in the interlocal, you know, it basically accomplishes 2 things. Officially recognizes or identifies this trust, the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority, as the provider of municipal parking services and public transit services for the city of Oklahoma City. And then also included in the interlocal agreement is the various funding sources that will support those enterprises. There's no specific funding levels identified, but more just the types of different funds that will be used to support those services. The interlocal agreement that we have before you this morning will renew February 13th after approved by council. This will go to council, city council as well. The duration is 5 years with automatic 5-year renewals from there. I'd be glad to answer any other questions.
Jason, I visited a minute before, and he asked me prior to, was it 88 that this agreement was entered into originally, I think, and did we have one before that? And I said, now, somebody can correct my memory, but prior to that, I think the bus system was privately owned, and we didn't have any parking garages, so we had no use for an interlocal agreement prior to 88. And at that time when we entered into that, the city manager, was it Don? What was it?
Terry Childers.
Terry Childers. I can remember having conversations with him about one of his ideas was to break up the trust and have parking in one trust and transportation in another, which we never did. But anyway, that's kind of little history on that. So, any questions? If not, I'd have a motion to approve our consent docket.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Items for individual consideration. I'm going to move item A to the last item on the consent docket to look at when we return from executive session, but I do need a motion to move our 2 items to the executive session. Item C, and I guess we need a roll call vote, so I'll take a roll call vote on item C now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
That motion's approved. And then item D, same thing, roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right. Item D is...
Could someone second we need a motion and a second?
No,
both.
excuse me.
Okay.
Item B is a resolution authorizing the administrator to enter into negotiations with successful proposal for Cotpa's mobile ticketing and fare inspection application. If you'd like to discuss that, Jason.
Yeah, this item, again, will authorize negotiations with a provider for mobile ticketing and fare enforcement technology. As you know, as we continue to implement programs and technology to make our current bus system easier to use in anticipation of providing ease of fare payment with Oklahoma City Streetcar, the Trust has moved forward with recommendations from our fare study consultant in implementing mobile ticketing technology. In November of 2017, the Board of Trustees authorized the issuance of an RFP for mobile ticketing and fare enforcement proposals. That advertisement went out on November 22nd and 29th. We received 6 proposals. 5 of those were deemed to be responsive proposals. The selection committee has narrowed to 2 firms that we're going to schedule interviews with in February. So we anticipate being able to make a decision on who we move forward with mid-February, and then with approval of this item, that gives us the authorization as staff and as the administrator to go ahead and begin those negotiations in anticipation of being able to bring a contract back to the Board of Trustees as soon as possible, hopefully March, but no later than April as it stands now.
All right. Any questions? Not. Do I have a motion to approve item B?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next item is ratification of claims and payrolls for January 2nd through January 23rd. Unless any of the trustees have any questions, I'd have a motion to ratify.
Move ratification. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Financial reports, the budget to actual for the 6 months ended December 31st. Jason, if you've got any particular comments you'd like to make.
Yes, I'd like to direct the trustees to page 2 of your financial reports. This is the budget to actual for 6 months ending December 31st, and we'll look, of course, at the transportation operations budget to actual first. Would direct your attention to really that bottom line in the operating revenue section. You can see total operating revenues through 6 months is right at about $13.4 million. That's about 97.5% of what we had expected through 6 months of the fiscal year. And you'll note, if you look up at the individual line items, that variance is attributable to our federal grant revenue. As you know, depending on the timing of reimbursements and the amount of qualified expenses we can draw on for reimbursement, that revenue tends to fluctuate from month to month. Last month we were over budget. This month we're under budget. I will note we are between grants, so when we look at our January financials in next month's board meeting, we'll probably see this variance or possibly even a little bit more. But that's the main reason for any variance in the revenues. With operating expenditures, you can see we're at about 92% of what we had expected through 6 months of the fiscal year, and you can look at each of those individual expenditure lines to see where we vary. But you'll notice all those expenditure categories are under budget. And then looking at our total operating income for 6 months, you'll see our revenues exceed our expenditures by just under $1.7 million.
Jason, what was originally budgeted in the streetcar operations that were so far under? I mean, what's coming that will bring that more into line?
Yeah, so as we get closer and closer to operations, we're going to see more and more expenses related to streetcar operations. So, for example, early on in the fiscal year, we had relatively low expenses, very few staff. As we get closer to operations. We'll be adding staff. There'll be expenses associated with the facility, insuring the vehicles, those kinds of things. So we'll expect them to pick up towards the last half of the year.
And is the budget just set on this one, just basically on the proportion of the year, and we knew the expenses would be later in the year?
Yeah, and you know, we could have tried to forecast that a little bit more concisely, but going into it, you know, we didn't really have any history, any basis, so we just kind of allocated that budget equally throughout the year.
Well, your challenge will be the budget for next year when we are in operations, determining what the budget is, so.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so looking on page 3, that'll take you to the budget to actual for the parking operations. Again, I would just direct your attention to total operating revenues. You can see we're right on track with budget. We're at about 102% of what we had expected, or about $75,000 over in total operating revenues. Looking at operating expenditures, overall, we're at about 96% of the budget, so we're slightly under. I will direct your attention to the top line of the expenditure list there, the parking garage operations. You'll notice it's at about 95% of the budget. And this is one where I think I'd mentioned last month we were a little bit behind in terms of processing the payments to Republic Parking Systems for operations and management of the garages, and all of those invoices are caught up to our budget projections. So you'll notice a pretty significant change there from last month's financials. Again, overall, looking at operating income, income is in excess of expenditures through 6 months of the fiscal year at about $2.3 million. Then turning to page 4, I'll talk quickly about the river cruises operations. Again, total operating revenues in terms of actual to budget are virtually unchanged from last month. Same goes with expenses, and it's not surprising, particularly in light of the fact that we're not operating regular service right now. So very little change in terms of percentages there. And then just finish up real quick on page 5, looking at Spokie's operations. Again, total operating revenues are about 106% of what we had expected, or $8,600 over. And again, most of that is because of bike share revenue. The revenue generated from users of the system is coming in higher than what we had anticipated. And then looking down at operating expenditures, you'll see we're at about 92% of our budget, so we are maintaining expenditures slightly below expectations. Operating income for the year is just over $77,000. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions about the financials.
Any questions? If not, then I'd have a motion to receive our financial reports. All in favor? Opposed? All right. We have 2 program reports for the meeting today. The first one is the transit system report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Chip. I'm the scheduling manager for Embark, and I'll be filling in for Kevin this morning. So I've got 4 topics to talk to you about today. Got safety, ridership, including fixed route and night service, on-time performance, and our fiscal year end of performance measure attainment. First, we'll talk about safety. We're responsible for 4 preventable accidents, all of which were low-dollar accidents. We experienced 3 non-preventable accidents during the month of December, which resulted in about $5,500 worth of damage to our vehicles. So then we'll go on to ridership. There we go. So, average ridership for local and commuter route service was 9,754 in December of 2017, compared to 9,877 trips per day in December of 2016. This is a decrease of 1.3%. Fiscal year to date, total ridership for local and commuter routes Monday through Saturday was 1,500,152 compared to 1,573,598 in December of 2016. It's a decrease of 4.7%. Take a look at our night service. It continues to do well. Our new night service averaged 311 passenger trips per night in December of 2017 compared to 288 passenger trips per night in December of 2016. It's an 8% increase. On-time performance for December 2017 was 65.1%, which is a decline from December of 2016 of 72.49%. We're working diligently to identify and correct avoidable causes of decreased on-time performance, including eliminating early departures, being responsive and creative as possible in our detours, and providing additional training when necessary. Finally, look at our LFR. For number of passengers per service hour, we're 94% of our target, 16.95. Number of passengers per operating day, 87% of our target at 10,577. Percentage of on-time bus arrivals were 88% of our target at 66%. Number of miles driven between road calls for fixed route service, 77% of our target at 13,162. Number of vehicle accidents per 100,000 miles is 134% of our target. Number of passenger claims per 100,000 service miles is 108% of our target. Thanks for your time, and I can try and answer any questions you might have.
Oh, any questions? All right, Chip, thank you.
Thanks.
Our streetcar report. Jason? Jesse?
Morning.
Yeah.
Everyone had a great January. Quick update here. There we go. All right, so operations, it was a busy month in January for operations. List here is the SOPs that Embark and Herzog have been developing for the streetcar operations. On the graph here, you can see the red line. That was last month's progress, and then the blue bar there shows progress through January. So, big jump there in emergency operations, communication operations, and track and maintenance away SOPs. So things are progressing really well, and we hope to get all these SOPs wrapped up in March and April, getting ready for phase 2 of streetcar operations. All right. So Embark and Herzog continue to review and develop the safety and security plans. Our committees continue to meet monthly. We hold those committees the same week as the MAP 3 subcommittee. So that was last week. It was a really productive week last week for the committees. And then also our systems integrated test committee also meets monthly, and then we also have weekly calls. And so what that committee does is it goes around and tests the system, get the systems to work together, the streetcar to work with the rail, streetcar to work with the storage and maintenance facility and overhead wires. And so that's what this video here is. Herzog Stacy Whitbeck developed we call it a speeder cart, but it's basically a clearance cart that we can run along the route, check clearances with the platforms, and then also inside the storage and maintenance facility, the mezzanine. So we ran this cart up and down the rail inside the storage and maintenance facility, checking clearances with the mezzanine, the bridges that connect to the streetcar from the outside there. So obviously everything cleared and it's looking great. Jason and I spent last week finishing up our TSSP certification. We were in San Jose, California, and our class was a transit rail incident investigation. I was hoping to be able to show a couple of pictures of us being actually out in the rail yard in San Jose. We did a mock investigation of 2 commuter rails colliding, and we interviewed the operators, went around investigating the scene there, and came back and gave a report to the class. But we completed our 160 hours, and we are officially TSSP certified. So mainline track construction continues. This is a picture of one of the OCS poles in Bricktown being lifted and put into place. The completion milestone has slipped slightly to May of 2018. The main issue there was delivery delays for the special track work, but all of those are now in Oklahoma City and ready to be installed. So this is a picture of concrete placement being ready to go into place on Robinson up near 6th Street. Our completion milestone for the D line continues to hold of August of 2018. So this picture here, they're getting ready to pour concrete and they've got their heater set up. This was when we were having one of our cold spells. So they'll place the concrete, put the tarps down, put put the heaters in there so that we can maintain the temperature that we need for the concrete placement. This picture here is a picture right outside here at the downtown library, rebuilding that plaza and building the platform. They're placing concrete next to the library there. And this picture here is a picture of them doing pier drilling up off of Northwest 11th, right off of Broadway, near the Mercedes dealership there. So this pole placement is on the north side of 11th Street. This will actually be one of the poles that help pull the OCS wire through that corner to help keep the tension to pull the wire through the corner. At last board meeting, you asked if I would come and give a little more information on the platforms. So the next few slides is doing that, give a little more information for the ballpark platform. It's our most complete platform. So this slide here is to help get everyone oriented with where the station is. So on the south side of the screen here, we've got East-West Street of Reno, and then you've got the Mickey Mantle running north-south there. And this is the station there. In the picture here, the Spokey Stations is right about where the platform station is, but we recently moved the Spokey Stations around the corner to make room for the streetcar platform. This is a rendering of the ballpark stop, just to kind of give you an idea of what it's going to look like when it's all complete. We're celebrating with the fireworks. So this is what it currently looks like. The platform, all the flat work is complete, the truncated domes are in place, and all the guardrails are in place. You can see the stub up there for the pylon being ready to be placed. So the next step is to install the shelter, and then your ticket vending machine, and your information pylon. And so it's a rough drawing. Thank you, Paintbrush, Microsoft Paintbrush, but this will give you an idea of what it'll look like when it's complete. Any questions on the platforms? Okay. So again, mainline track construction continues. January was a good busy month for the construction. We're setting at 87% for utilities clear, 60% for track demo, 54% for track installation, 62% for OCS foundations. They started running up Broadway and on 11th Street. They're getting those OCS foundations in place. And then up 6 station stops. And then I added this far right column just so you can see the percentage of increase from last month to this month, so you can see a steady progress there. And the TPSS sites and contact wire, the reason for 0% there is that there's a process getting those in place, so they're not quite complete with TPSS 4 and 5. And then the contact wire, obviously the contact wire on Hudson is in place, but we're hoping to get OCS wire up in Bricktown here shortly. And then I mentioned earlier that we had some delays with rail procurement. That was mostly getting them shipped across seas, but all special track work is in Oklahoma City and ready to be installed. Storage maintenance facility. So storage maintenance facility is essentially complete. Like I said, last month it went to City Council, substantially complete. They're only waiting on owner-furnished, contractor-installed items, and then they're working on a few final punch list items. So the big news is the arrival of the first streetcar. So we are tentatively scheduled to receive the very first streetcar February 13th. As with anything, construction or delivery, there's always other factors in play, and there could be potential delays with weather. The streetcar is coming from Brookville, Pennsylvania, up in the northeast, so there's always that potential for weather delays. And then we'll start receiving streetcars after that, about one every 3 to 5 weeks. So we expect our vehicle number 2 in March, and vehicle number 3 in March, and then vehicle number 4 in April, vehicle number 5 in May, vehicle number 6 following that in May, and then vehicle number 7, we're looking to get that around July or August of 2018. So this is a picture of vehicle number 1 and vehicle number 2 being moved around the yard there in Brookville, Pennsylvania. Like I mentioned earlier, there is snow on the ground in Pennsylvania, so again, potential delays with delivery. But I thought this was a cool picture. Vehicle number 3, this is a picture of it inside the paint booth. They just finished painting the vehicle number 3. This is the blue vehicle. And then this is a picture just outside the paint booth of vehicle number 3. And like I said, vehicle number 1 is on its way to Oklahoma City, and this is a picture of vehicle number 1 on the test track in Pennsylvania. All right. Happy to answer any questions.
Well, I'm glad our vehicles are coming from Pennsylvania and not Czechoslovakia, or where was the first
Yeah.
first contract. All right. Any questions from Jesse? All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right. Do we need a motion to go into executive session? No. Do?
We're ready to go.
Okay. Excuse me, yeah. Yeah. Would have a motion to receive our program reports. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right. Item C was to enter an executive session discussing the contract negotiations with the Transit Union Local 993. Do I hear a motion to approve item C? All in favor?
I think we approved item A on, it was item A that we
Oh.
approved.
Okay, so item A is where we took the vote to approve.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, is that everything? Then we're adjourned.